Optimal living, living optimally.
Welcome to Optimal Living Starts Here. I am your host, and this is the holistic lifestyle show that supports active duty military, veterans, and their family members with living more healthy, happy lives. And today I am in the studio with two phenomenal doctors. I should say two phenomenal physicians. And we have Dr. Chambers and Dr. Chambers in the studio. And you'll learn a little bit more about these two gentlemen as we continue in this conversation. So today, I would like to talk about how this particular practice that is two generations of board certified physicians, how it has, I guess, not only emerged, but it's also transformed itself over the past few years. And these gentlemen are going to help me to tell that story. So make sure if you are tuning in now and you are really concerned about health and wellness, especially the women's health, grab you a pen and a notepad or something so that you can take some notes as we continue on in this conversation. Now, I'm going to start with the Dr. Chambers over to my left because I believe in respecting the elders. And since I'm an elder too, I would like for somebody to introduce me first. So let's just talk with our first Dr. Chambers, since you were the reason why this practice even exists, right?
Well, Dr. Curtis Fleming actually had the practice prior to my purchasing it in July of 2000. I came here initially employed at Phoenix Regional Hospital by Columbus Regional Health System. Dr. Dwight Hooper was the doctor over in Phoenix City. We did residency together in Baltimore. He was from Maryland, I was from Maryland. So he asked me when I completed residency, when I completed 3 years of a clinical instructor at Meharry in Nashville, would I join him here? And my wife was from LaGrange, so it really looked appealing. We could be close to family, but not too close. And I could come here with someone familiar to me and get started. After that 3-year contract was up, right around the end of it, Dr. Curtis Fleming, he was my fraternity brother as well. He said, "Doc, would you be interested in purchasing my practice?" And I said, "By all means." So it was a blessing. Unfortunately, he passed in July of that same year of 2000. Actually, it may have been in the fall, but I purchased the practice in July. And the rest is history. Dr. West and myself, he came on about 10 years ago. And I can't believe we worked a whole decade together. And then he and his wife have actually taken the bull by the horns and done an excellent job since then.
Right. That's good news, because we always like to hear those stories where things are kind of passed down in the family and even between friends, because we know that someone trusted you in order to even present that opportunity to you, and then you in turn trusted your son into taking it to the next level. So that's a wonderful story. So tell me about how and why you decided to become a physician.
Well, I always liked life sciences. My mother was a science teacher in Annapolis High School at Bates High School, which was the black high school at that time. And she would bring home small animals during the Christmas break. Chickens, roosters, alligators, turtles. We had to house them in my house during the holidays. And I just fell in love with nature and natural science. And of course, like most young guys, I played sports, and I told my mother I was going to be a professional athlete and be rich and get her all this stuff. And I broke my leg as a youth, and I said, well, my dad always said, have a backup plan. And I said, well, maybe I ought to study a little harder just in case. So I suffered a few broken bones in my career. And I said, maybe my body's really not meant for all that trauma. So I studied and prepared, and ended up going to Morehouse pre-med major. I wasn't sure what kind of doctor I wanted to become. When I went to medical school, I said I wanted to be a pediatrician. But then I had 3 kids by the time I got done medical school, and I'm like, that's out. I'm not going to do that at home and at work. And I saw how parents went ballistic when you tried to take care of their kids, and they were interfering. I said, nah, that's too much of a headache. So the happiest guys I saw as a student were the obstetrician gynecologists. They seemed to be joyful. They seemed to be enjoying their career. They seemed to be excited about medicine. And I said, you know, this is the kind of lifestyle I want. I want to be happy. I want good outcomes for people. I didn't want to deal with a lot of death and dying. And we get 2 specialties in one. We get obstetrics and gynecology. So that's 2 for the price of 1. So I really think that was my niche, and it worked out for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is great news, and I'm learning more about you. I know that we first met at Art of Yoga,
Right.
And so you get your yoga on, and that's
must.
a wonderful thing coming from a physician, because I'm from a town, Detroit, Michigan, and when I think about the physicians I used to see coming up, all the way up until probably my 40s, I just remember seeing a lot of physicians that were not very healthy. And to see you doing yoga and see you so active, you said you just rode your bike 20 miles this morning? Or?
Took some time to get there. Now.
What?
I didn't just do it overnight.
But to do it, just to continue for 20
It's
miles.
therapeutic for me.
Yes, but that's a wonderful thing, because what you're really doing is demonstrating that even though you are a physician that is now calling yourself retired, I mean, I get it, you're calling yourself retired, but I don't think you can really ever retire as a physician, can you?
Yes, you can.
I thought for sure that Wesley probably would be calling you and saying, oh,
He calls me, but he doesn't give me a check anymore. That means I'm retired.
I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. But it's just good to see that even though you're retired, that you are staying very active, and you are, just caring about your own health and well-being. That's very important for physicians and for non. So let's go over here to the other Dr. Chambers. And so you decided that you would come in and be a part of this practice as well. Was it intentional that it was going to be a family practice, or were you just considering, I want to be a doctor, but I don't know where and how? How did that thing turn around?
Well, my interest in obstetrics and gynecology developed over the course of my medical school training. I knew I wanted to be a doctor as a young child. Seeing my father be a physician and seeing him be respected in the community for his profession, and seeing that he seemed to enjoy what he did, and so I always knew I wanted to be a physician. My mother was an attorney, and I saw that she did a lot of reading and writing briefs, and she would come with big briefcases full of papers, and I didn't enjoy reading and writing as much as a child, and so I looked at what my father was doing, and I thought that that would be more my speed. And so, but then when I got to medical school, after I went to Morehouse for undergrad, I thought that I wanted to do something within internal medicine. I was very interested in physiology and how different organs in the body worked, and how we could deal with pathology, diagnose different diseases, and then treat. And so I thought I wanted to do cardiology or nephrology. These are subspecialties within medicine. But then I had my surgery rotation, and I got a taste of the operating room, and I knew that I wanted to do surgery with some type of surgical specialty. And my second to last rotation of my 3rd year happened to be obstetrics and gynecology, and he already mentioned the name Dr. Dwight Hooper. Well, after Phoenix Regional closed here in Phoenix City, Dr. Dwight Hooper ended up practicing medicine in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he ended up practicing affiliated with the University of Alabama School of Medicine, where I was training. So he was my clerkship director for my obstetrics and gynecology rotation. And so he gave me a level of exposure to the specialty that I don't think could be rivaled. He was allowing me to do procedures as a third-year medical student, and I found that I really just enjoyed the practice of that particular specialty. And so I decided at the end of that rotation that that's what I wanted to do long term. And then toward the end of residency training, I had my first daughter my 4th year of medical school, and I had my son my 2nd year of residency. And so I had 2 young children, and considering that our family was in this area and my wife's family was not far from here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and that there was a practice that my father was very busy with in solo practice. He had been doing solo practice for 14 years at that point. And so I felt like coming and joining him and helping him with the workload was just the most reasonable course of action. There were other opportunities, like to either stay in Mobile or to go back to Tuscaloosa and practice in those places, but I thought coming back home was what I really wanted, and so I did, and so here we are 10 years later.
Right, and I'm hearing that both of you graduated from HBCUs. Did I hear that correctly?
We both went to Morehouse, same HBCU.
Wow, yeah, that's a wonderful thing.
Yes,
Very
indeed.
good thing. I love to hear that as well. So I just have to say, I'm just so proud of both of you gentlemen. I wanted to have you both on the show together because I think it's important that our viewers see not only physicians, but African American physicians, and the fact that you graduated from HBCUs. I just think that we should put images like this in front of people more often, because sometimes the images that we see are not representative of our community as a whole. And so I wanted you guys to come on board and just kind of talk with our audience about the process of getting that practice going, why you decided to do it. And I kept hearing the word joy. Both of you guys were talking about joy. It made me feel good. It brought about joy. And I'm like, how many people look at their career path and determine the path based on the level of joy? You know?
Right.
So many people just think about, I want to earn XYZ amount because I want to make this money so I can have this lifestyle, but they don't talk about the joy. And I personally think that part is very important, especially if you're going to do it for a period of time, an extended period of time. You want to be joyful while you're doing the work, and you want to bring joy to those people that you're supporting. So thank you for bringing that out in this interview so far. So we got a chance to meet Wesley for the first time a few weeks back at the event. I think it was the Mindful Wellness Day.
Yes.
And I was so impressed as we sat there on that panel discussion and you were speaking to the state of health and wellness for women. And I began to think about the conversation that Dr. Jackson and I had on the previous interview. If you have been watching this show, you probably remember the interview with Dr. Kimberly Jackson. We were talking about this state of health in the Columbus, Georgia area. And so I must say it's got to be Columbus and Phoenix City, since we're so close together. We probably share in this state of health and wellness, and it's pretty dire. And so we had this discussion. We were talking about, well, what are your practices doing to support the well-being of women and their children? And how do you think your practice can actually help to shift these numbers from being near the very, very bottom to moving it up a little bit, as far as, you know, how many I mean, because the particular study was talking about mortality rate. It was talking about access to fruits and vegetables. It talked about walkable communities and the ability to have accessibility to that walkability. What are you thinking about that? Do you think that your practice is doing anything at all to help with that?
So I think the main thing that our practice does is provide quality, excellent health care for the women of this community, which is very important, a very important component of overall wellness. However, I would argue that there are more important components of overall wellness, because when patients come to us, a lot of times they are already in a state of illness, or they are in a high stakes state of health like a pregnancy. And what patients need is to be maintaining their wellness throughout their lives. And so supporting that is something that we would like to do more of, but the way that I think medical practice is set up in the United States, the system really isn't designed for medical practices to support the continued health. Now, when women come to Well Women visits, we do provide education and counseling about how to improve your health, or how to maintain a state of health. So that's a routine thing that we do, but that's a once a year dynamic. So there isn't like the continued reinforcement of the things that we educate our patients on, throughout the year. And so we will do counseling about nutrition and physical activity, but then we see the patient the following year. This year the patient says, okay, well, I'm getting ready to start working out, right? Or I just started working out last week. And then we see them the next year, and then they're saying the same thing. Well, I'm getting ready to start, watching I'm thinking about getting ready to start watching my nutrition. And so, we really need the reinforcement. We needed to become a part of the culture, the general culture of the community, to just be mindful of your health and wellness. But one of the things that I do every time I see a patient for a Well Woman visit is I ask them the question, what do you do to maintain your health? And they look at me like I got horns coming out of my head. A lot of times, like, it's like a lot of people haven't thought about it. And so we kind of just have to get people more mindful of themselves and their wellness, and to understand that they deserve to be well, and they deserve to be taking the time to think about what they're doing to make themselves feel better and live better and things like that.
Yes, that is so key. Now, I know you're retired and all, but do you have any insights on some things that might be beneficial for switching things around?
Well, yes. I actually would have my bicycles in my office parked. So I would lead by example. I would tell my patients, do something. You don't have to ride a bike, but go walking, go with your friends, your colleagues, your church members, get with groups, go somewhere safe, and just get started. Just start. I think that was the hardest part, was to get people to change direction. Culturally, we love Southern eating down here, and that's not the healthiest stuff. And you eat a large plate, you finish it, and you want to lie down and go to sleep and be a couch potato. But it's an investment. I try to tell people what you do now in your 20s, 30s, 40s will make your quality of life in your 50s, 60s, 70s that much better. Yes. So it's an investment in how you're going to feel. Mm-hmm. So when I have 50-year-olds telling me that their knees are aching and all of that, and I show them the trajectory of their weight and explain to them, this will probably help if you reverse that trajectory. And as he said, sometimes I get some looks and I back down when I get those looks. I know signals, when to shut up. So, but I just, we try to just encourage. Yeah. But you cannot force. It's hard to change cultural habits. Yeah. Generational.
Yeah. Yeah. you're absolutely right about that. And I mentioned Detroit, and when I first got into the practice of holistic health and wellness, it was around that time when the city was named the fattest city in America. And it was the same exact situation. People moved from the South and they moved north, especially African Americans. A lot of them moved from Georgia, Alabama to Ohio, Michigan. And so there's a lot of Southern people in Detroit, and they definitely have that mindset about food and it being fried all the time and it being, lots of pork and things that I learned at 18 were not going to help me to live a healthy life. I mean, I made a decision looking at my family members, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think everybody lives like this. So I began to make some changes, but I can say that one of the things that we did as a community, and I'm talking about the holistic health and wellness community, we began to do things like walkathons, and we would get groups of people who had never ever walked before and get them out in the park and walking around and making it fun. And then some of the other things we did were like wellness fairs in the parking lot. We would bring the tents and stuff out of the building, out into the parking lot to get people engaged and, getting massages for the very first time and those type of things, learning about stretching and, even yoga and meditation. So I was just wondering, I don't see that happening a lot here. Well, I mean, the Mindful Wellness Day was a big day for that, because that's exactly what we were doing. There were physicians, all different types of physicians there. There was the holistic health, there was the weight management part, there was the healthy eating part. We had a nice mixture of professionals working together on that day to educate our community. And so I just believe that is one of the greatest things that we can do, is to come out of our four walls of wherever our office is and come out into the general public. Now, I know you guys are physicians, so y'all not trying to miss money like that.
Well, I mean, when you're in private practice and you have employees, your employees' paychecks are dependent on you generating revenue. You have to pay overhead and you have to pay your salaried employees and things like that. And so that's a very important consideration when you're running a business. But we do get out into the community through volunteer work. My fraternal organization, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, has an achievement week every year where we celebrate the founding of our fraternity. And I've been doing a health forum the past 3 years at Allen Temple AME Church, where we do a similar thing where we have physicians, multidisciplinary approach to providing education about health and wellness to the community. And not just physicians, we've had yoga instructors at our health forum as well, to just try to provide outside of a medical practice, outside of paying a copay and having to worry about health insurance coverage, where people can just come and hear what physicians are saying about maintaining overall health and wellness, what the individual can do themselves and as groups in community to maintain the health of not just the individuals but the health of the community as a whole. And so we need to renew that focus, and unfortunately a lot of times we provide these opportunities for people to come out and learn new things, and we get very little participation from the community. We're giving out educational opportunities for free, but a lot of times if you're not giving out material items for free, you don't get a big participation from the community. And so I think we have to reevaluate our values, and we need to value lifelong learning. We need to value health and wellness more than we do.
Yes. Oh my God.
And some of that may be getting the word out. It's kind of hard to actually connect with people.
Yes.
to make sure people see that it's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are unaware, so how do you get them? Either you put flyers out, or you stop them in traffic and just wait, hey, there's a health fair down the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the social media, I think that's the main way they advertise it. And
Right.
if you're not kind of on those sites or connected with those people, then they're not going to see it. They're not going to know.
Right.
And he actually had yoga for pregnant women. I mean, he had it in his office with an instructor coming.
Right.
Chris Brooks came, and it was people would sign up for it and not show up.
Yeah.
And so you can't keep paying someone to come provide a service and people not, or as he said, not taking advantage of it and utilizing it.
Right.
So the efforts are being made, but you know, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water.
Can't make them drink. Yeah, I get that. And so one of the things that came to mind as you were speaking, because we did have a conversation before now.
Yes, ma'am.
And we were just kind of, just having a discussion. And one of the things that came up was the idea of education, period. We're not talking about going and getting a degree as a physician. We're not asking our viewers to get a degree and become a physician. But what we are talking about is how well do you know your own body? Being educated about yourself. There's this thing that we hear often talk about, know thyself, and I've been considering that myself since I was probably about 30 and going really deep about what that means. And I think that kind of got me on this whole path of holistic health and wellness, because I ran from biology in high school. I'm like, I didn't want to cut open a pig or a frog or anything like that. That was not a part of what I was wanting to do. But because I bypassed that, it made it harder for me to understand how my body functioned. And so therefore, when I began feeling these various things happening inside of me, I was like, well, what is this? But as I began to study anatomy, physiology, pathology, and relating what I was learning to my own body, I began to see that, wait a minute, a lot of this is about how do you fuel this body? How do you nourish this body? Because they're two different things,
Right.
I didn't know there was a difference between fueling and nourishment, but they are. And as I began to learn those things and make small changes, not big changes, small changes, I began to see my body shift. And I turned 55 when I became a yoga instructor. So I decided to bring more things into my life that would help me have a better quality of life.
Exactly.
And so speaking of education, in Detroit at that time, it was literally 50% of adults, and I'm kind of sad to say it, but 50% of adults at that time were illiterate. 18 and over, illiterate. And I have to believe that might have something to do with the health and wellness here in this area. Now, not to say illiterate is not to say anybody's dumb or stupid. So, audience, I am not saying that. Illiterate just means that you don't have the knowledge about a thing, whatever that thing is. You can be literate about one thing and illiterate about something else, but it's what do you spend time studying? And so I would like to suggest to our audience that if you are having some challenges that are chronic, that you take those brochures that the doctors give you. I see you guys give these brochures. You have information on your website. Check out those links and read about whatever the illness is that you're being treated for. Nowadays, we got all kinds of websites you can go to. And now I know y'all don't want them to go there and try to diagnose themselves, but you should be aware of what you're being treated for, what is the medication you're taking, how is it supposed to benefit, and what can you do personally to support your own health and well-being. And that takes me back to the yoga.
Yeah, and I'll say this on that subject. We have to, as you said, look at the fuel we're putting in And I trusted the grocery stores to give me healthy foods. I actually did that for most of my life until I became educated about how in this country the FDA allows anything that they almost get paid for to allow in our foods.
Yes.
Now, I'll leave that part alone. I don't want to get assassinated. So I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
I can't rely on the government to protect me from substances that I think are food.
Right.
It's not really food.
Right.
So if you can just make small changes, get some salad, get some apples, get broiled or baked instead of fried. Just make that one of your 3 meals a healthy meal. Start there. Maybe in a month, 2 years, you'll be doing 2 healthy meals. And maybe you'll have healthy habits that give you better fuel to make you feel better. The yoga I got into, not because I just wanted to do yoga. I had lower back pain. I got a inverting machine. I did all kinds of other exercises, massage. Nothing worked until I started doing yoga.
Yeah.
And I've been back pain free as long as I do yoga. I took a break, it came back, I said, okay, you know what works. Go back to what works. So we just have to just slowly turn that ship.
Yeah.
And just get better habits, and it pays. You get a daily benefit
Yes.
from just concentrating on taking better care of yourself.
Yes, 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 and it feels, I mean, it's empowering. That's what I get out of it, because now I have some control. I'm not depending on someone else to control how I feel. So what are your thoughts about nutritional supplements? What do you think about that?
I mean, nutritional supplements have their place. I think in the United States, we do get pretty adequate nutrition in terms of, starvation and things like that. Now, there are people that, there's poverty where people might have food insecurity, and there may be food deserts where people can't get fresh foods. But nutritional supplements can kind of take the place of watching your diet in such a way that you're making sure that you're getting all of these specific nutrients, specific vitamins, specific, just nutrients that your body needs in order to function at its full capacity. And so when you take multivitamins or these nutritional supplements, you can kind of feel reassured that you are at least getting the adequate amount of these nutrients for your body to function adequately. And so, I totally agree with using nutritional supplements. Now, unfortunately, the ones that we purchase over the counter are not usually approved by the FDA in a way to where we can guarantee that what they're saying on the label is exactly what you're getting. And so there's that. So we have to rely on, private labs and things like that to look at these supplements and to verify the quality. And so you need to do your own research about what brand of these supplements that you're using, and whether or not, you don't want to be just getting snake oil sold to you and thinking you're getting something else.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's very important too for the physicians that the patients are sharing information with you about what nutritional supplements they're taking and those type of things, even down to herbs, because there can be some challenges with mixing certain medications with certain herbs and nutritional supplements too. So I'm sure that's a big deal as far as, a physician wanting to have open conversations with their patients about those things. So thank you so much for that. Now, another thing that came to mind as I was considering women's health. I'm a woman, so yes, I'm caring about women's health. What exactly do you consider as, best practices, if you were to think of the top 3 things that a woman should be doing for her women's health? That's a no-brainer, you must do these 3 things. What would they be?
I would say, definitely engaging in regular physical activity. We talk about 300 minutes of physical activity per week, so 5 times a week for 1 hour. would get you to that goal. And that helps to, movement is medicine, right? And so, I mean, it not just keeping the weight off, but it helps your body to just function better. The number one cause of death in women is cardiovascular disease. And so doing aerobic exercise helps to prevent or at least postpone the worst outcomes of cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular events like strokes, heart attacks, or diseases like congestive heart failure. And so that's number one that people need to be doing their entire lives. Going and getting regular women's health screenings by professional physician, so that you get your pap smears on a regular basis. That's how we have made cervical cancer from the most common gynecologic cancer to decreasing that rate by 70%.
Oh.
And so whereas in other countries where people don't have access to pap smears, that cervical cancer rate, it's still very high. It's still the most common gynecologic cancer in those places. And just understanding your body, understanding when your regular menstrual cycle is abnormal, understanding that passing blood clots is not a normal thing, understanding that having severe pain during your menstrual cycles is abnormal and should be evaluated by a physician if you're having those issues. And also preparing for pregnancy before you get pregnant. Pregnancy is a high risk, high stakes medical event in a woman's life. And so I use the analogy that it's a marathon. You're pregnant it's a 10-month marathon. And nobody just rolls out of bed and says, I'm gonna run 26 miles today. That's a marathon, right? You train for that. You prepare. You think about what you're doing before you embark on such a journey. And that's another major thing that women need to be mindful of prior to the event.
Yes, preparing for it. Yes. So what's coming to my mind, because I know that you guys are physicians, and my mind is a little bit different from yours, because not only am I a woman, but I interact with women all the time. And for me, I tend to see that one of the greatest challenges with women and their health is their ability to manage stress. I mean, women take on, oh my God, sometimes they have 2 or 3 kids, maybe more, then they work full time, then they have a husband or significant other that they're, being supportive of, then you got the household, then you get, it's like so much that a woman will take on. And yeah, man's supposed to have the brawn and everything. But women tend to, self-care is not a priority for many of them.
Yeah, I think society socializes women to be nurturers and to kind of put themselves on the back burner. And so women are caring for everybody else's health in their life. They're, my first physician, I didn't think about my father when I felt like I was sick. I wanted my mother. And so, our mothers are our first physicians, and matriarchs of the family tend to be the glue that hold families together. So they are, and they tend to do a lot of the domestic work, a lot of the work that, it's real work. But it's not reimbursed. It's not, they don't get paid to do any of it. And it is very stressful, and sometimes we don't consider, how much of a burden we put on, matriarchs and mothers of families and women in general. And so that's something that's cultural, and when we really try to enforce traditional gender roles, then those are the types of pressures that are put on women.
And people that are in high stress professions, air traffic controllers, physicians, engineers, they go hit a ball, they hit racquetball, or hit a tennis ball, or hit a golf ball. You can't stay in a vicious cycle.
Right. Right.
So it doesn't take much time, but you just have to get away, get some me time. You can't be tired from walking 3 miles and stressed at the same time. Your endorphins and enkephalins kick in, and you're naturally sedated.
Yeah.
So that's what I said about the benefits. So you have to find some time, have a cooperative type of mentality. If you have 10 kids to watch, let 2 people watch the 10 kids and the other 5 people go get some exercise and rotate that. Come up with a plan that allows you to get some me time.
Right. Oh, I love that.
And also
That's
on the
great.
screening note, colonoscopy, we got to make sure, because colorectal cancer is a big one,
Yes.
got to make sure we don't shy away out of fear for those screens. So many times people look at me and they say, I'm not doing it. They'll come back 3, 4, 5 years later. I haven't done it. And I'm begging people to get that screen. And I don't know, it falls on deaf ears. It's just they're afraid. They don't, the whole process scares them about a rectal tube and all that, the camera. But it's very important because we're coming in with advanced stages of cancer that could have been addressed, and longevity and a better quality of life could have been there.
Right, right. And as I think about that even, all I can do is think about the digestive system and the food-like substances that we might be ingesting on a regular basis and how that might be even contributing to cancer and things like that. We know that it can be environmental. We know that it can be from, like I said, food-like substances. But, we talked about something earlier, and we were talking about the fact that policy is very important as it relates to the well-being of individuals as well. And I thought about that a little bit after our discussion and everything, and I was like, you know what, you are absolutely right about that. I began to consider some of the recent things happening in politics, where you have old men deciding what to do with a woman's body and things like that, and making it a law.
Yes. Reproductive freedom, I think, is essential for human freedom and for if Americans are going to have the rights that were guaranteed in the Constitution, then the right to privacy, the right to health care, the right to making decisions about your own body and the trajectory of your life, the right to bodily autonomy, the right to not have to worry about unwarranted search and seizure. If a woman is pregnant, no, it should not be anybody's business. We have laws that say that we have stand your ground laws that say, if somebody tries to come into your personal space, you can hurt them.
Right.
And it's legal. It would be a self-defense kind of thing. Well, how then can we monitor what's going on internally in a woman's body in order to say that what she's doing is illegal or not? It's her body.
Right.
If women don't have bodily autonomy, none of us do. If we start to violate people's civil rights and their constitutional rights, then anybody's civil rights and constitutional rights are in jeopardy. And so I think that health and wellness starts on the individual level. If you don't have the autonomy of your own body, then outside forces can start to impact your health in ways that against your will. And so, we have to protect women's rights. We have to protect reproductive freedom, and we have to advocate for reproductive justice. And there's a very clear choice right now before us. And in November, I hope that women and people that love women and have loved ones that are women will stand up and people, if you just value your own constitutional rights, then you should stand up for the constitutional rights of women.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, well, legislators that have absolutely no medical background should not make rules for people that are trained and board certified and trained. It's outrageous. They equate someone wanting to get rid of a pregnancy with someone needing a termination of the pregnancy to save their lives. They equate that. oftentimes when we do a D&C or suction D&C, they call it abortion. It's not a real abortion because oftentimes, and 9 times out of 10, the fetus is deceased.
Already. Yeah.
We document there's no heartbeat. Even in those situations, they say, well, is she dying? Well, she's bleeding. So how much blood would you like to lose, young fella, before we operate on you and cut this bleeding off? See, that doesn't make any sense. So she has to be about to die, and then you have permission from us to take her to the operating room and do your job.
Yeah.
So physicians are afraid to go to jail for 10 years and get fined because they can't do their jobs, because these legislators said there will be penalties for us for doing our job, which we are trained to do, to save our patients' lives. So that's one of the worst things that has ever happened,
Yes.
as far as I'm concerned, to obstetricians. We're handcuffed, and having to explain that to a patient, ooh, it's a tough task, and it's demoralizing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think about that. I've actually, personally had 2 miscarriages, and I guess probably back in those days would have considered even that the second time an abortion, because it was the D&C had to occur. The first time it was a complete miscarriage where the whole baby just came out. I mean, this is kind of graphic on television, but hey, women know what's going on. But the second time it was a little different, and it was so funny because I went to one hospital. I was having excessive bleeding. I went to one hospital and they told me that I was never pregnant in the first place. Then I had to go to another hospital because I was still feeling all of this. I know I had gone to what do you call it?
Prenatal.
Yeah, prenatal care, and tested blood and everything, and then bam. And then they were like, well, we're going to have to do this procedure because there's still some residual and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, well, whoa. And thinking about these laws and things like that, I mean, that would have had me so stressed out to try to figure this out. Well, are they going to say this? Are they going to say I can't do this? What? I mean, this is about my health and wellness. You can't leave that inside of you.
And women are already, when they're going through something like that, they're already being traumatized by just the situation itself. And to layer on top of that this question of whether they'll be criminalized or whether their doctor will be criminalized for trying to help the individual who's going through a medical crisis. I mean, these laws that say, okay, you can do what you need to do if, for the sake of the mother, or if there is an ectopic pregnancy or something like that. Well, there are situations where my opinion or the patient's opinion of how close they are to death and whether they are willing to tolerate the level of risk, how close they are to getting seriously ill or how much blood they have to lose. A patient should be the one that determines whether they're willing to tolerate, let's just let you go home and come back in a week and see whether you're bleeding still at that time. A patient should be the one to make that decision of whether she wants to take that risk of bleeding out, at home in the bathroom or something like that.
Her and her doctor.
Yeah, or it should be between her and her doctor. After we counsel the patient, once she says that, no, I want my health to be prioritized in this situation, if there's a reasonable suspicion that her health should be at risk, then we should be able to act. But the law doesn't clarify, what level of risk of death this woman needs to be at for us to be able to intervene. And I don't think if there was any situation where a man was at risk, 5% risk of death, 10% risk of death, there would be no question. There would be no law that would say, well, you got to wait. It's got to be 50% risk of death. It doesn't make sense. And we have to do something to change the trajectory of where those kinds of laws are going.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I feel like you just want to say something.
No. I mean, in general, society allows people to govern, right? So society decides who makes these decisions. If society wants to stay on the sidelines, people will make the decisions for you. If you decide that you've had enough, and you go out and let your voice be heard through the only tool that you have as an individual, and that's your vote. So, I mean, we could wish a lot of things, but sometimes it takes action.
It takes action. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, we've shared so many great things, tips, tools, resources, all of that. And I want to go back. I'm just going to stick on this stress thing just for a little bit longer, only because, I'm very aware. Right now, they're saying that about 80% of adults are experiencing some type of mental health distress. 80% seems like a huge number to me. And I'm thinking, now some of it, of course, is not even being reported because some people don't even want to acknowledge that they're dealing with stress. But, as physicians, we, in my practice as a holistic health professional, I'm speaking with my clients about their nutrition. I'm speaking with them about their movement. Primarily areas like career, relationships, spirituality, physical activity. Those are the primary areas. And so when I find that one of my clients is really having, really a stressful situation over here, over there, that's not my practice. It's not even in my practice to assist a person that has a mental health challenge. But I keep like a resource guide for myself, and I have specialists that I refer them to, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. And so I'm just wondering, is that a natural thing for physicians to keep somewhat of a resource guide where you can refer a patient that you feel, wait a minute, I can see your level of stress, this is beyond my practice, I have someone I can share, or refer you to. Is that a part of your regular practice, or how do you do that?
So from a clinical standpoint, we have referral patterns that we kind of tend to repeat in terms of whether if a patient needs a general surgeon or if a patient needs the primary care physician or certain subspecialties. And so that tends to develop organically based on patient's needs and the types of problems that you're dealing with. Once something gets beyond your ability or your experience and training, you tend to refer people out for those medical type issues. But there are issues that sometimes are psychosocial, sometimes are environmental, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of resources, and medical practice and our training doesn't really focus a lot on learning how to assess your environment or for the types of resources that patients might need in terms of economic, social, and there's not a lot of funding for psychiatric and mental health resources, unfortunately. And so because the profit motive is involved in almost every aspect of care. When patients are in crisis, if health insurance doesn't cover, the type of therapy or the type of referral that a patient might need, then most of our patients are going to be out of luck because people don't really have a lot of cash on hand to just pay for certain types of therapy that insurance doesn't cover. A lot of people don't have the type of money that would be required to have a membership at a gym or a subscription to like a yoga practice and things like that. And so, yeah, there are big gaps in those resources, and we recognize that, and unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's trending towards changing for the better in the near future.
And I'll add that we screen for certain stressors and mental issues. If someone's in a domestic abuse situation, we see bruising or their affect demonstrates that that's the case, we do not turn those people away. We get the nurses to give them access to some immediate help. If someone, postpartum depression, you can be suicidal or homicidal, so we question them. If there's an acute need, regardless of their ability to pay, we have a way to facilitate them getting assessed by a professional. So we use that to our advantage to get them. Now, we're not psychiatrists, so we don't treat manic, we don't do all of those things. And psychotic type breakdowns, we don't do that. But certain signs of things going awry, we interview, we get the information and send them to the proper channels.
And sometimes people that are going through certain stressors just need to talk to somebody. Sometimes just, they're coming to you for medical care, but if you sense that there's a personal stress going on with the patient, just allowing them to kind of tell you what they have going on and for you to show empathy, sometimes that's very therapeutic in and of itself. And so, we do that on a regular basis.
Yes, this is great information. Well, audience, I hope that you have been taking notes like I suggested that you do, because if so, you probably have a couple pages full of information. But right now, I want to give both of you guys an opportunity. I know you say you retired, but I'm still going to give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts or remarks, and definitely share your information, how people can get in touch with you and find out about getting a wellness checkup for, their women's health and those type of things. They'll start with you since you're in the practice.
Sure. So Chambers OBGYN practice is located on 811 22nd Street in Columbus, Georgia, between Rose Hill Seafood and Piedmont Midtown Medical Center. You can call 706-323-1054 if you want to make an appointment. And I'm online. I've got a Facebook page, Wesley Chambers. There's a Facebook page for my father, Dr. Crandall Chambers. You can find, that's more the practice's Facebook page. And so you can find us on Facebook, and or just call us and make an appointment.
And I have to say, I'm a new patient.
Yes.
I'm a new patient coming for the first time. Was it this week or last week? Sometime in the last 7 days, I've been over there. And I was treated with great respect and dignity. And I appreciate the atmosphere and the caring, compassionate experience that I had with everyone on your staff. So I have to say that out loud to the world, because that was a great experience. Do you have any thoughts, anything you would like to share?
Just to piggyback off what he said, mind, body, and soul, that's what we consist of. So we need to address that. The spiritual aspect oftentimes gets neglected. We're spiritually anorexic. Read spiritual literature. I'm not going to get into religiosity, but spiritual literature, poetry, just a nature walk, things that don't cost a lot. You don't have to have a yoga subscription. You can get online, type in yoga, and the instructor will give you a free 20-minute course. And when you were talking about stress, Chris has a tendency to ask at the end of every class, give me a word or two to describe how you feel. No one gives a word other than a serenity or tranquil or relaxed. That's across the board.
Yes.
So that's a very free way to get rid of stress. No one says, I'm stressed at the end of a class.
Yes.
Right? That's all right. Yeah.
I agree.
Nutrition, get your screenings, take better care of yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it has definitely been a pleasure having both of you on this episode of Optimal Living Starts Here. And as we continue to bring you resources, information, education, and just experts to support you on your journey to health and wellness, we hope that you will comment in the section below whether you like this video, if you're watching it on television, live on Beam. Maybe send them a note saying, we like Optimal Living Starts Here. We do hope that you will continue to watch and learn and grow, because your wellness, your well-being is very important to each of you. So for now, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next episode of Optimal Living Starts Here.
Optimal living, living optimally.